This is E&P Reports, a service of Editor and Publisher Magazine. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And sponsored this week by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide are asking the same question. How do we accelerate the growth of consumer revenue? Traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way, costing you money. IQ Audience Plus by Town News is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers you to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Ready to supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income? Visit townnews.com/EP today to learn more about IQ Audience Plus. And hi, once again, I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P. If you're getting value out of E&P Reports, our weekly vodcast series, and if you're listening on your favorite podcast channel, please subscribe to our channel. And if you're on YouTube now watching the video version, head to the bottom of the video and click that subscribe button, hit the bell next to it, and you'll get an update each and every time we upload a new segment. I'm going to take you now to one of the prettiest spots in the United States. I know it because my mom and dad, when I was a kid, used to bring us there for vacations. We're talking northern New York. We're talking Thousand Islands. And we're talking about a company called Johnson Newspaper Corporation. This is a family operation that has owned the newspaper in Watertown, New York now since before the Civil War. Today they publish 5 dailies, a whole mess of weeklies, have over 200 employees, 2 press facilities, and they are bringing back a newspaper in the town of Ogdensburg, New York. The Journal there had to be shut down in 2019, but they're now getting bullish on it, and they're going to bring it back because the local business community has asked the Johnson family to bring back the print product in this area. And by the way, if there was one family you wanted to talk to about being bullish on print, it's the Johnson family. So with your permission now, let's head up to northern New York and speak to the COO and president of Johnson Newspaper Group, Alec E. Johnson. Alec, I may call you Alec, or is it Mr. Johnson?
Oh, it's Alec for sure.
Alec, it's an honor.
There's a whole bunch of Mr. Johnsons that come before me, and they're all still Mr. Johnsons. I'm just Alec.
Well, I think I have shoes older than you, sir, just looking at, but you are president COO of Johnson Newspaper Corp. Before we go on and talk a little bit more about how you've brought a newspaper back to life, let's first talk about the Johnson Newspaper Company. You guys date way back, right? I mean, it all started in 1861. Is that correct, sir?
1861 was the start of the Watertown Daily Times. That was not my family, but we became involved with my great grandfather Harold in about 1904. He was a reporter, and he worked here, and then he went out west for a while, and they came back and to Governor, where he was from, which is north of Watertown here, and he became the managing editor, and eventually, found his way up to own the company and bought it from the Brockway family in the 1909 to early teens. The exact year escapes me right now, but that was the beginning of it. We've been here since. My grandfather, John B. Johnson, who passed away in 2001, was in somewhat of a similar position I find myself, though I didn't have the misfortune of losing my father. My father's well and alive, but my great grandfather passed away when he was young, and my grandfather was about 35.
Wow.
When he was left to figure things out, and he was an only child, and he did that. He did a fantastic job and grew our company from the one newspaper to start radio and television in the North Country, WWNY Channel 7, which is still broadcasting, now owned by Gray Media. He started that, and all the local radio. We got out of that business. The federal government didn't like us in that business at the time. So they sold, and then he made that opportunity. He took that opportunity to grow the newspaper business and acquired, papers in Batavia and the Hudson Valley, and some of the old Park newspapers in northern New York, which we still, are publishing today.
That is amazing. And your dad's still around, right? You took
Yes,
over
yes.
for him?
My dad and my uncle were the next generation, and they worked together. My dad was on the business side of things, and my uncle ran the editorial side of the company for quite a while. And my dad's still here in somewhat of an official capacity, but really I'm the day-to-day guy, and he provides a lot of guidance and assistance.
But I got to ask, do you have children, sir?
I do. I have a daughter, Claire, who's going to be 2 next month, and I've got another expected in September. So,
are you starting to like wave ink under her nostrils
yes,
so she gets
actually,
into her blood?
For sure. My daughter doesn't really know what she's doing, but she's been holding newspapers up like this since she could, and she a while ago, my wife sent me a video, and she had the comics, and they were upside down, but she was looking at them and she said, like daddy, like daddy.
It's funny. I entered the newspaper industry obliquely. Many know me because I ran, the Blinder Group for 20 some odd years. And I, helped generate revenue for newspapers all over the world. But I entered from radio and television in Portland, Maine, because I was a nerd. I always carried computers around. I was head of the ad club, and the family that owned the Portland, Maine Press Herald, Matty Corson, I mean, it was a family operation for over 100 years, hired me to start their online division in 1998. So I worked for a family, but they sold out. I mean, they did before. Yeah. I mean, they sold, they could not find offspring. Does that make sense? They cared about the industry. It's such an honor when I hear of these, like Tom Shaw. We had him on, the Shaw family. It's so cool when I hear that there's still that I call it that ink in your veins mentality, where you're taking over the stewardship of your great grandfather. But I mean, I know it's hard. I mean, it's not as easy as the good old days. You have the same battles as everyone else. But before we discuss all that, Alec, let's discuss where you are. I call you the Thousand Islands because my parents and I used to go up there all the time and vacation. But you're in a very pretty part of the world. What do you call that area of New York State?
We call it the North Country, but it encompasses the whole region. But really, the Thousand Islands, Lake Ontario, it's a beautiful place. If you got to be able to stand a good solid winter, but you've got 4 good seasons, and we luck out. I've already been out on the water and been spending time, in the boat. Even though it's April, we had an 80-degree day already, and we've had 3 inches of snow since then. So it's a very, the weather is quite varied, but it's a fun place to live, and when the whole pandemic began, we were way behind the curve, and we were lucky in that sense. And I tell people a lot that we naturally socially distance up here. We like our space, and it's a good place to go for a drive. It's not like Connecticut and smaller states where you're town to town to town. You've got a lot of farmland in between the villages and towns, and it's a beautiful place at any time of year.
Where is the largest metropolitan area? Where is it? Toronto? I mean, what is the largest city near you?
Well, Syracuse is 70 miles south of us.
Okay.
And and Montreal is a couple hours north along the river. But can't visit these days. Ottawa is about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours north. Syracuse is what people mostly identify
as your. But your industry there is mostly tourism, right? I mean, it's not like it's not a manufacturing spot, is it? Or what have you got?
Our industry is mostly government. Fort Drum is based here outside of Watertown, and Fort Drum is the largest single site employer in the state of New York. So the majority of people moving to this area have some connection to the fort, whether they are in military service or working as civilian contractors. People that bought the house across the street from me just recently, I haven't met them yet, but I noticed they're in an Army uniform and they leave for work in the morning, as is 2 houses down. So a lot a lot of military and other businesses that support that. We also have the New York Air Brake here in Watertown, which is owned by a multinational company that manufactures air brakes for trains. They've been here for just as long as the newspaper has in various capacities. So they're a rather large employer. What we don't have is a number of paper mills that were generally in this area. In the late 1800s, the Black River had numerous paper mills along it. There's still one in downtown Watertown, Milton Specialty Paper Products, and they make specialty papers, and they're no longer they're privately owned, but no longer in the Knowlton family. But that was a name that was in town for a long time as well.
Johnson Newspaper Corporation. You are currently at the main office, which I assume is in Watertown. Is that where you are right now?
Yes, it is in Watertown.
How many publications? How large is the staff? What's the footprint?
We have 5 dailies.
Dailies?
Yes, 5
dailies. When you say daily, do you mean 7 days or 5 days? What do you recommend?
5 and 6 days.
Okay, go ahead.
So we had Watertown Daily Times. It's a 6-day. We have Malone Telegram, Batavia Daily News, the Hudson Register Star, and the Catskill Daily Mail. Geographically, we're kind of all over the place. So we were here in the North Country. We have the Malone Telegram, which is up in Franklin County, and the Watertown Times here that we cover the majority of the North Country. And then out in Western New York, we have the Batavia Daily News, which is about halfway between Rochester and Buffalo.
Okay.
And then the Register Star and Daily Mail are based out of Hudson, New York, which is south of Albany. So we kind of have this triangle of coverage. And we also have 4 weeklies right now: the Louisville Journal and Republican in Lewis County, the Courier Observer in St. Lawrence County, and the Livingston County News, which is out by Batavia and Geneseo, and then the Ogdensburg Journal, which is the paper that we're bringing back here.
What is the combined circulation then?
Combined circulation of all the papers. Let's see.
Got the math in your brain there?
Yeah. Between 30 and 40,000 print probably combined of all those. And we print them all in Watertown here and truck them out each day. We also have 2 shoppers. We have a large one down in the Hudson Valley and one here in the North Country as well. You
also have, I was exploring, of course, your assets prior to this interview, a Downtown Digital Group. It looks like you have a pretty advanced digital services agency, but I wouldn't even call it a digital agency. It looks like you're really getting into just being an advertising agency. You do a lot of content creation and things like that, right?
We do that. We've that grew up under my cousin John's leadership. He was a steward of the company for about 13 years and moved on to a different industry a couple of years ago. But he really built that up from the ground up, and it is its own agency that operates within our current staff. So that allows us to reach customers for job ads in other states and areas that are farther away from our core products. But in the last year, to be honest with you, we've really focused more on our legacy brands and in print advertising.
Really?
We're doing that. It's all complementary or supplementary of each other. But our focus coming out of the pandemic has been on reinvigorating our ad sales. And when we rebuilt our budgets this year based on a combination of our 2019 and 2020 numbers, we focused on print and rebuilding the local relationships that we've had for generations. And we've seen quite a lot of success so far this year. Our print, RLP budgets were at, the last month we were at 116% of our budget. So we're looking around to see if we can do a little bit better. Digital, there's so much competition. There's competition with Google and Facebook. So we use both platforms. But my mentality on our business here is that print's not going away, and digital is not replacing it, but they work together, right? And one of the biggest things we've learned in the last couple of years since we put paywalls up is that only 10% of our print subscribers are registering to use the websites. So 90% of our print subscribers are traditional print subscribers that are interested in the printed newspaper being delivered to them, and each day as a curated package of news. we've seen digital growth even more since we've added the e-editions in our various markets, the replica editions that show that printed curated package. So we're working on a strategy very much that the internet complements the paper. It allows us to break news quickly, but our core mission is producing printed newspapers.
So basically, you're giving love, if I could use that term, that some companies, we don't want to mention their names, near you don't. In other words,
yes,
you take it real seriously. When that paper goes out, it looks good, it's a good product, and it has value. Your Watertown Daily that went out this morning, I assume it's a morning paper.
Yes, it is.
How many pages, if I may ask? Was this
24 pages, 2-section, 24-page paper, and we've set that book to be we run our press collect, so we run run the page counts the same per section, and we moved to generally the 24-page book a year or so ago, and actually increased the size some days because we used to vary the pages. We found that works better for production and planning, but it also gives our readers a solid number of pages each day. On the weekend, we actually have, I think, a close to 56-page edition that goes out on Sunday.
Wow.
Several sections, some of which we pre-print. But I got a copy of it here today. Unfortunately, we have a tragedy on the front page today. Not anything that we've ever seen. Just across the street here yesterday, 2 people were shot in their office by what looks like a disgruntled former employee. So this isn't a typical front page, but it's a typical size of the paper. One thing we started during the pandemic too was our own page for kids, Times for Kids, and we did dispatches from the pandemic, had them writing in about their neighborhoods and things. So that was kind of fun, and we felt like keeping it up after that. So we're trying to give something to everyone: new readers, older readers.
Your background is interesting. You studied journalism. You have a master's in journalism.
Yes.
You did not work for your family you worked for some other people who I actually know. You were down in Waterbury, is that correct?
I was in Waterbury, yes. I met
Connecticut.
I ended up
with family there.
Yeah, I worked for the Papes for 8 years.
Right.
And it was a fantastic boot camp, for what I wanted to do.
It's a great operation, but here's the funny thing. Wasn't your family mad at you? Because it looks like you rose there. You went in and became business manager, and I mean, you were, didn't your family say, come home, help us?
No, that's the one thing I love about my family, all of them. There was no pressure whatsoever to come back to this business.
So it's a completely different market there. I mean, Waterbury is a very competitive media market.
It is. And, one of my first reporting jobs, with Waterbury, I started there as a reporter. I met former executive editor who you may have known, John Kellogg, at a Columbia job fair. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. One thing I knew I didn't want to do was come back here and start with the family and not have experience of another operation.
That's admirable. You did not go back and just get yourself a job because Dad gave it to you. You worked for Bill. You worked for the Pape family.
I worked for Bill Pape and Will Pape, and I worked for a great editor named Ann Caroli, who's the managing editor there. And she was she and John Kellogg, when I started, knew what I wanted to do. I also kept it under wraps of where I came from. There were people that when I left had no idea that I came from a newspaper family, and I kept it that way because I didn't want to get any preference. I didn't want people to have preconceived notions of me. I wanted to prove myself as a good reporter and then an editor. And
I got to ask, did Bill and your dad know each other? Did they talk on the phone about you?
No, they didn't. No? My dad didn't know Bill Pape from Adam. Okay. Will and my dad may have bumped into my uncle, years back, but there was no connection or setup there, or definitely that I'm aware of. But I wouldn't think there would have been. It was really I met John Kellogg and he introduced me to Ann. I didn't get hired for the job I applied for. I got hired for a different job, but it was I went in there, and on the first day, John sat me down in his office and said, "Look, if you're here to collect a paycheck, it's time for you to just pack up and leave." And it was a good speech. I think he gives a lot of people, but it really got to the core of, the importance of being in this news business. You can't do it for a paycheck. You've got to do it because you believe in the mission. You believe in reporting and the importance of, making sure your newspaper is a mirror of the community every day. So with that expectation from the beginning and the understanding that I did someday want to come back here, I worked, with John and Ann, and they were hard on me in times, but really helped turn me into a good reporter and editor, and they didn't take excuses, and they didn't let me slide, and I owe them a lot of gratitude for that.
Well, then this is how we kind of found each other. You sent a press release to E&P I found fascinating. Rather than go out and buy a newspaper like some companies are doing now, you resurrected one. You went into a market in Ogdensburg. Mm-hmm. And the Journal, which had died when? It was last published, 2 years ago?
June of 2019, yes.
What was the story there? Who owned it, and why did it go dark?
Well, we owned it.
Okay, you owned it. Okay.
We owned it. We've owned it for years. That was actually a daily. At one point, we were publishing 7 dailies and 13 weeklies, and as the business kind of constricted, they either were merged with other titles and fell off. And 2019 was a very, very difficult year for our business. It was my first year here, and my cousin and I had to make a lot of very difficult decisions that year on staffing and on publication frequency. We changed the Watertown Times to we dropped the Monday edition of the Watertown mm-hmm. Daily Times that year, and we had we unfortunately made the decision to shut down the Journal and another weekly in St. Lawrence County and one in Southern Jefferson County, just based on the numbers and the readership, with the hope and the belief that the readers would pick up our daily and continue that. And we wanted to make the Watertown Daily Times the hero of the North Country and encourage all the readers that were used to getting these weeklies to get the daily paper. Well, we quickly found that wasn't really the case. Our readership numbers for the Watertown Daily Times stayed relatively flat in Ogdensburg, and we lost that audience of readers. Ogdensburg is a small city. It's a city that's been on hard times, and it's a city that's easy to overlook or think that there's nothing going on there. There's been a lot going on there. It's a very hot political city. We've had daily coverage of fights between the city and the fire union and all sorts of things lately. But as we started this year, we were talking about ideas to grow circulation, and that's we're working on a growth strategy. We have to grow. Businesses that don't grow go away. So the discussion started late last year with Gary Valek, our vice president, and I about what we can do this year, how we can get some of those Ogdensburg readers back, and we kicked around the idea of maybe a quarterly, just something that long-term narrative writing, but we really came to the realization after conversations with both businesses in the area and former employees of ours and other community stakeholders that the community wanted that title back, the Ogdensburg Journal. It's called the Journal. And so we put wheels in motion, and
was there a website of any kind still churning out any content, or did it just did the brand just go dark?
The brand totally went dark and folded into at the same time we made all these changes in Northern New York, we took the brands away from our individual newspaper websites in the North Country and launched NNY 360, which is a multi-county news website that's fed by the Times and all the weeklies up in the area.
Similar to what Shaw did with their weekly products around
yes.
Tom Shaw and Shaw Media around Chicago. Just for those that didn't listen to the podcast we recorded 2 weeks ago with Tom Shaw, they made it one parent news operation where they fed it all in digitally.
Mhm.
I went to that website. You also launched verticals there as well for the region. You have a cars, homes, and jobs
Mhm.
vertical too, right?
Yes, yes, and those all existed before that website, but we folded them in, and it used to be ogd.com, and I believe that's now an overhead garage door company that you go to the website. They were very interested in that three-letter domain, so we happily sold it to them after it closed. Um, but our conversations with people who lived in Ogdensburg, they wanted a newspaper, and we felt we were in the best position to give it to them. We've hired a guy
Well, you
named Matt.
hired back a couple pros
A
that had
couple
big names.
pros.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, the political climate in Ogdensburg actually worked out to our benefit, because Matt was a city employee that lost his job during the recession. And, when I asked around to a former editor, I said, who do you think should help us? His name came up first, and he
That's
happily
Bat
accepted.
Curatolo?
Curatolo.
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 And then you also bragged in your press release about Shea, correct?
Yes, yep. Dave Shea has been here for a long time, and he had 40 years of reporting, and he didn't put down his notebook when the paper went away. He started his own website and continued covering
serving the town, serving the community.
Yeah.
So you have the advantage of two good names that gave street cred to the brand.
Yeah.
You were already feeding regional news into a regional site. I don't want to say global, but what you said earlier now applies. Print is your focus, and the town itself was craving that product again. We hear this in other communities where where the local citizenry, the business community is begging to have that newspaper back, and you gave it to them. How did you do that?
I'm sorry, was your question? How did we do that, or what?
Yeah, I mean, what did you do? Just suddenly say, well, then you better friggin' advertise with me, or I won't do it. I mean, how did you make the numbers work that you're going to bring this puppy back?
Well, it hasn't succeeded yet. So I don't want to presumptive to say that it's going to work, but I think that I'm confident that through the informal conversations that we've had for advertisers that want to reach readers in the city and towns around Ogdensburg that didn't want to support our Watertown Times because we were seen as the ones that we were the ones that closed down their newspaper. There's a lot of animosity. By bringing back this title, I think that it will encourage people to advertise locally. Also, too, one thing to think about our region is the North Country is huge, right? So it takes as long to drive from here to Messina almost as it does to Batavia, even though it's only 60 miles, because it's a 2-lane road. There's traffic and tractors, and it's a long way. So in that same way, advertisers from St. Lawrence County aren't necessarily interested in reaching people in Watertown, because we're not going to drive 60 miles to buy a pair of sneakers or whatever we have to they have to advertise. We have an insert, section called the Advance, which was part of the Journal that it ran on Sundays for a few years, and we added publication on Thursdays so the St. Lawrence County advertisers had a county specific publication to advertise in, and we started it at just 4 pages, and now it's almost 6 pages full of ads, and it's all very local advertising. They're not interested in reaching people in our far reaches. So by the Journal will give that opportunity for that circle of advertisers where larger people will still use the Times, and down in our Oswego County, we have a Oswego County News and a Shopper down there that is very hyper local and full of advertising as well. And it's all the print is what's been driving the revenue. And I got to tell you too, I know you got another question. Surviving the pandemic came down to 2 things. One was circulation revenue, and the second was the Paycheck Protection Program.
Right.
Those are the 2 things that helped us get through.
So now you're going to launch a print edition in the town. You've found 2 really strong names, a sports guy and an editor, that the town will look to. So the content will have some street cred.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have regional writers that will contribute to it as well. What about the sales machine there? What are you going to do? You're going to open up a sales office there? You're going to have your sellers cover the market? I did a Google map. It's 70 miles from your where you're sitting right now, correct? To the other?
I think it's about 56 miles. It's about 60 miles. We have a sales rep that's been growing in St. Lawrence County. We have an office in Messina right now, where we have another printing plant. So our ad rep out of that area is going to work on it first. And if there's a market there, then we will add more staff to fill it appropriately. We don't have an office in Ogdensburg yet, but that's it's on the list. I don't want to put the cart too far ahead of the horse here, but we're gonna grow this. We just sent the first edition, just a sample out last Thursday, and between the first 3 days of this week, I think we've got between 100 and 200 subscribers that mailed in their checks, and some people went and sent in money orders right away in the first couple of days. So
how many pages was it, and how did you distribute it? The first edition.
It was a 6-page single section with a front page with the half of the bottom was a subscription offer, and the back page was a sports page, and then news content inside. Real news. It was a real newspaper with stories and even an editorial that sparked controversy and letters to the editor already.
Good.
And we did every door direct mail. We put out
every door
direct mail. Yes.
How large is that?
We did 10,700 pieces that we mailed.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's a heavy commitment. That's it
is. I think it costs probably a couple $1,000s to do that. We've already made that up with the subscriptions that we've sold. And we're probably one of the biggest users of the post office in this area and in the areas where we have newspapers, because we've been moving a lot of our circulation to exceptional dispatch, same day delivery by the post office. It's helped us greatly reduce our carrier costs and find a more stable workforce, and especially through the pandemic, as people are less inclined to do that type of work. So we've learned a lot about the post office in the last couple of years. Our paper out in Batavia, about 30% is delivered with the mail, and the rest is carrier. In Hudson, most of the papers are delivered by mail, same day delivery. It's consistency. We learned in the 2018, 2019 time period when we had trouble with our routes and carriers. There were points where we had 30 to 40 open routes. For anybody that's been in newspapers, that means that's a danger zone, because if you're not getting your paper to anybody reliably, they're going to drop it. They're frustrated, they're angry. We've used the Postal Service to fix those problems in areas where we had shortages, and we've regained several hundred subscribers that we lost due to poor service because of that issue. And we're looking, to use the Postal Service more and tailor our equipment, our video jet to label papers and things that we hadn't considered or approached in years past.
All right, so it's the Ogdensburg Journal.
Correct.
It is going to be mailed, subscription based. What is your commitment to size, and how many days a week are you going to be doing?
It's a one day a week. It'll be published on Thursday.
Okay, so it's a weekly. Okay.
It's a weekly right now, with potential to grow, a minimum of 16 pages a week, but the opportunity to grow based on news content and circulation, and advertising sales.
When it shut down in 2019, was it a weekly as well?
It was published twice a week in 2019.
So you may resume that, seeing how.
Yeah, we could resume that, quite easily. We have the capacity to print it, and we'll definitely have the news coverage to do it. We just want to make sure that it's a financially, sustainable model.
And the master site, the regional news site, is called 360. What was that again?
NNY 360.
NNY 360. That's for Northern New York 360.
Yeah.
And the news of Ogdensburg obviously will be there as well.
Yes.
When people want to find the news of Ogdensburg, do you have separate URLs to separate sections, or is your goal to have everybody come to the master site first, the regional site? And I mean, how do you promote it?
The goal is to get to the regional site, but we're broken up by counties. So we have St. Lawrence County, Jefferson County, Oswego County, and Lewis County. And in that, with the drill down, you get, you're more specific if you're looking for only St. Lawrence County news. We surprisingly get a lot of traffic out of our St. Lawrence County section of the site. It's a very heavily trafficked site, but everything, if it's a good story and it's best, it's on the homepage. And if it's something that's less important to the larger audience, it'll be only on that county specific portion of the website.
Are you doing anything with video now? Are you experimenting with multimedia? Are you doing podcasts, things like that, or what's that?
We've had a successful history podcast in Northern New York for quite a while. It kind of went on the wayside as people were working remotely. We're hoping to bring that back soon. We do news video. We've done a lot of sports video in Batavia. We have a great operation there. And it really, this is all based on the personnel and the people that you have in various locations. And in Batavia, we've got some great tech savvy sports reporters who encourage us to buy some cameras to do live streaming of events. So we sell advertising, do live streams of the sporting events. That was very successful in the last couple months as sports came back, but the audiences weren't allowed to be there.
That's excellent. Yeah.
So what we're as we experiment things in their different markets, we try to find a good plan to put them together with everyone. But based on resources and training, we haven't quite hit that stride yet where we can replicate what we're doing in Batavia and Watertown and then bring it down to Hudson. But that's it's down the road. That's what we're hoping to do.
All right. I didn't get the question out earlier. How many employees total for Johnson? The Johnson Newspaper Corp.
Last we checked, we have about 230 employees overall.
Wow. You have are you just printing yourself, or do you sell commercial printing as well?
We sell commercial printing as well. We print several. I think we have total, not every day, but a total of about 56 commercial customers that we work with between Watertown and Messina. We do a lot of our more versatile jobs in Messina, where we have a single wide press with a quarter folder, jaw folder, and then we have a double wide man Roland here in Watertown, which is more suited to printing daily broadsheet newspapers. We're working with another family company, the Rome Sentinel, Brad Waters, the publisher there, also my age and similar. I think he's in his 5th generation, but we developed a partnership this year where we're printing his daily paper here in Watertown and sending it down there to Rome. So, the more we can work together, especially as families, family ownership, the better off we'll be. And we've got capacity to grow on both press and as we work out the growing pains of taking these presses that for almost generations were fired up once a night to running them for 8-hour shifts. We're headed in the right direction.
Good for you, Alec. If anyone wanted to get a hold of you and learn more about, especially how you really work the post office, that sounds like a very cool distribution system. I mean, if you were to give advice right now, it's learn the system, and you really can make it work for you financially. Correct?
Absolutely. And I'm, I take no credit for that. That's Gary Valek, our vice president. He is an expert in that. I can just, speak about its virtues, but the post office is a great system. Who would think the post office might be a key to helping save the newspaper industry? We both thought of as dinosaurs, right? But they need business, and we need reliable distribution. And there's a happy medium there in most communities. So we're hoping to do more business with them. But that's what made it so easy to do our every door direct mail for the Ogdensburg Journal promo. It's what it helps us with the advertisers that want direct mail instead of in our printed products, which we do that as well. So it's a relationship at the local level with every postmaster that's really important, and understanding the system and the regulations and all that. There's a whole lot to it, and I'm no expert, but I'm lucky that we have one in the building.
Johnson Newspaper Corporation, based in Watertown. It's the northern New York area. Beautiful place to visit. The good months are coming. Definitely want to go up there to the Thousand Islands. My favorite was Hart Island. I remember I actually went out there for a trip once and spoke at a conference. I think there's a convention center there or something.
Yeah, there are a couple of big hotels across the river, and Hart Island is Bolt Castle. It's a beautiful place. There's another castle farther upriver on Singer Castle, which is a neat old place. Thousand Islands is it's an incredible place. It really is.
It's a good part of the country, and it's just nice people, nice area. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's your email address, Alec?
AEJ is an Alec Edward Johnson at WDT, WatertownDailyTimes.net. The key is the .net there, though.
We use .net. AEJ at WDT.net. Alec, I am so glad you invested that time with us today at E&P. I do hope that my successor gets a chance to interview your daughter when she's sitting in that very office in years to come, running the operation for you, showing you stuff you didn't even know you could be doing, 30 years from now.
Nothing would make me more proud.
There you go. Have a great day, sir. Stay healthy.
Thank you. You're the same. Goodbye.